So the first thing I wanted to chat about is going right back to the beginning of kind of Cornwall days. So were you born in Cornwall originally?
Born in Cornwall.
Okay. So tell
Yep.
us a little bit about your history and family and everything growing up there.
Well, I was born in 1940 when the war was just fresh, I guess you'd have to say. My dad was too old to be conscripted, but he insisted on going down, and at 31 he went and enlisted and joined the army. So he was away a lot.
Yep.
And as it turns out, he was at Camp Borden and broke his spine.
Oh.
So he never did get overseas. And I think he often felt real bad about that because he was a Canadian and wanted to represent his country. So from there, I guess I went to all the schools, high school. I used to tell the kids they get bused to school, I had to walk. And then they found out the school was only a block away. So that shot me down right there, man.
Right. Tough
I
guy
couldn't use that
mentality
line
just
again,
went-
I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's right. And in Cornwall, that's some street cred gone
It's a
down.
street crowd. Yep. Yeah. So, and played all the sports, of course.
Yep.
We were a sports family.
Did you play lacrosse too?
Played lacrosse.
Yeah?
Didn't play soccer because
Yeah.
soccer was coming in about 1950 or so.
Yeah, wasn't
So-
big back then, especially in Canada.
But we played hockey onto the old arena, and you didn't learn to lift the puck because the boards were only 6 or 8 inches high.
Yeah.
And if you lost that puck, you may not get another until next Christmas, you know?
Unless you go pick up the horse poop, right?
Well, we used to do that on the street.
Yeah.
When we played street hockey, we'd wait for the horses to go by and we'd freeze the buns. And boy, they hurt when you get hit in the shins with the darn things, too.
Did you have to mold them and everything too?
Yeah. So,
That's gross.
anyway, we didn't say car like the kids do today. We said horse
Too funny.
because the milkman and the bread man all had their horses. And it was interesting because you'd see they'd come along, the horse would stop. He knew that route. It was amazing.
Yep.
And he'd walk to the next house with his milk, and the horse would pull ahead right to the thing. Kind of neat, eh?
That is funny.
Yeah, no, it's very funny.
And then what about your mom?
My mom
her
was
story?
born in Cornwall. She was a Flanagan. So
Yep.
today I've got my green on because her father was Irish and her mother was pure French.
Was that where the...
So if you had a temper, that's where it came from.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And my mother had a family of 8. And when you saw the size of the house at 8 people, wow. And my grandfather had a good job. He was a stationary engineer at the Howard Smith paper mill.
Right.
Yeah. And my grandmother, well, she just cooked and did what women had to do with 8 children. What can you say? You know, those
Was
were
she the one that
different days.
Dad always talks about? She was a shorter lady?
No, that was my mother.
Oh, you're... Okay.
Yeah,
'Cause
my mom was
it'd be his
very short.
grandmother.
Yeah.
Okay. Because he always talks about her jumping up into the freezer.
Yeah,
Her
their
legs
little
would be
feet
dangling.
going. Oh, yeah. We used to laugh.
That's so
Oh,
funny.
yeah. And she was a good cook. We all...
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. She'd keep us all in if we went to visit. Except I used to tease her because she used to give my brother a bigger piece of pie than me. Because Donnie was her boy.
Yeah, that's
And we'd have lots of laughs about it. I said, Mother, look at this. Now, why don't you give me that piece, you know? Anyway.
That's funny. Well, in the
Oh,
long
yeah.
run, did that pay off?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was a good soul. My mother was a good soul. My father was born in Arnprior
Yep.
and, worked in the woods for a while because that was Sullivan Brothers right there were a big company
Yep.
in Arnprior. They had 2 big sawmills there. So they used to float the logs down and take them out in the river. And the problem with floating those logs were a lot of them sank. And then years ago, some of them would come back up. So you hit what they call deadheads if you were out in a boat. You had to be very careful. Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Very dangerous.
Does that kill people, basically?
Well, if you're driving too fast and you hit one, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never know.
So, yep. Anyway, then he worked with the railroad and wound up in Merrickville, what they called an operator, and they would, I'm not sure, they would set up trains and stuff like that and direct them. And then he wound up transferred to Cornwall and wound up at the Howard Smith paper mill.
Okay.
Yeah, so which was a good job, and he had before he went in the army. And when he came back,
Yep.
he decided he didn't want to work in the mill anymore and started his own business. So
Which
Yeah.
was what?
He called it BD Upholstering. He was an upholsterer.
Oh, so that's where you get it from.
That's where I get it from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Only I can't sew like he did.
Yeah?
He was good. And my brother could sew too. So
Was he
Yep.
at one point? Was it your father that was also the fire chief in Iron
No.
Pryor?
that was my grandfather.
Oh, grandfather.
And
Okay.
He
This
was
is
the
where all
fire chief there for probably 40 years.
Okay.
And one of my brother's sisters, my Aunt Muriel, helped set up the library there.
Okay.
Or I should say the museum,
Yep.
library museum, the one beside the other, and it was the old post office.
Cool.
So yeah, it's neat. It's a neat place. Anyway, she was a historian, and she had lots of connections with people who didn't mind spending a few dollars for the history saving.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, then I always told you that story about my grandfather was William George, so he got Bill,
Bill. Yep.
and he had a son that he called first Bill Jr., and then my dad was Wilford, so he got Bill. Well, then my dad moved to Cornwall, and my uncle was there too. So now you had two
Uncle Bill.
Bills, and Bill, my uncle Bill, had a son named Bill,
Oh.
and he then had a son named Bill.
Wow.
So you couldn't go wrong when you went to a family reunion. You say, "Hi, Bill. Hi, Bill. How the heck are you?"
And then on grandma's side, there's Bill and Bill as well, right?
Yeah.
On the Lumsden side.
Oh, on the Lumsden
Yeah.
side, yes, a lot of them. Yeah.
So
your
too many
grandmother.
Bills in the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Lumsden, I moved here after school. I moved and went to work for DuPont at the
Oh, yeah?
chemical plant.
I don't think I actually knew that.
Yeah, I worked there for 6 years as a chemical operator.
Cool.
Yeah, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Nice work, good pay. Probably some of the best pay in the area, although Phillips were pretty good too.
Yep.
However, I had a hard time working the shift work. It was really, I couldn't sleep.
Yep.
So
Was it like 2 weeks on
yeah.
and night shifts and then day shifts, or
no,
what
we
kind of?
we worked 7 days.
Okay.
7 days on, and then depending when it happened, you get up to 4 days off and so on.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but we had like 4 shifts, so it was a continual 24/7. Of course, you don't shut a chemical plant down,
Nope.
particularly in the winter.
Yep.
Yeah, so
How long were you there?
I was there 6 years,
Oh wow.
and I wound up working for Industrial Acceptance IAC. And I worked in Brockville, got training, and then I wound up going into the business side in Toronto.
Yep.
And I loved that, and that's when I got to talk to a lot of companies and did my own thing and brought business in, and that's what it was all about.
So that was at that point working with the banks there in Toronto, or that's
No,
later
I was
on?
with IAC, which
Okay.
you'd call them a commercial industrial bank, because we did a lot of stuff for business. The banks, actual Canadian banks, didn't do like fixed loans
Yep.
where we could do fixed loans. And we were really the pioneers of the equipment leasing business in Canada.
Yeah.
IAC became the biggest leasing company in Canada. And at one stage, we had like $250 million in leased equipment. We leased aircraft to Air Canada, printing presses, almost anything, construction equipment. Yeah,
Wow.
it was big business, and I enjoyed that. It was good.
Is that with also leasing like with the ships and all that too? Or is
Yeah,
that
we
later
didn't-
on?
We didn't. Well, we did. We financed some ships, but I don't
okay.
ever remember leasing. Leasing ships is a very dangerous thing. You got to think of in a lot of cases is a liability. Where does it lie? And as soon as you own it, you're liable.
Right. Yeah.
So we were careful on some of those assets. You just couldn't take anything and make a lease out of it. So.
Yeah.
And then I went to, David and Kevin were born in Brockville.
Yeah.
So when we
So that's
moved
my
there-
dad and my uncle.
Yeah. And then we got transferred to Winterpeg,
Oh yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
and I was there for 2.4 winters. And then,
It's basically 2.4 straight years then.
yeah, then the twins were born,
Yeah. Yeah.
and in Winterpeg.
Yep.
And then we were there for about 2.5 years, and then I got transferred to Edmonton.
Right.
I had to go to the colder climate.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that was good. And then we were there for about 1.5 years, and I coached hockey and church, taught Sunday school, a whole bunch of things. Anyway,
Yep.
And so one day my boss at IAC phoned me up and said, hey, I'm not with IAC anymore. I'm the president of a company called Scotia TD Leasing, which was the two banks in the leasing business.
Right.
And I'm looking for a couple of people, and you're on the hit list. So he said, come and talk to Toronto, or down to Toronto, and we'll have a talk and see what we can do.
Yep.
If there's anything that interests you. So, of course, my wife, Pat, she loved to get back east. We had no relatives out there, you know. And it was fine when the children were young, but they were starting to go to school and so. Anyway, we wound up back in Toronto.
Yep.
And I worked for the banks, enjoyed it. But you know what? I decided a long time ago that I wanted to have my own business. So that's when I phoned my brother and said, hey, Don, find me a business. Well, what do you want? I said, I don't care. $1 a dollar. Just something I'd
Make it happen.
Make it happen. So he
And
did
so
some,
Don was here in Cornwall at that point.
Don was here working
Okay.
for DuPont, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was in the design.
Yep.
And he was maintenance foreman. But anyway, next thing you know, he had one business. I looked at it, didn't really care for it.
And what was that? What kind of business?
It was in the supplies for businesses, you know,
Yep.
paper and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I just
Like an Office Depot.
didn't
type
turn
thing.
office type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't really keen me. Well, then he said, phoned and said, listen, Bushfield Motors is for sale. And so the next thing I said, well, set up an appointment. We'll come and talk to them. So I came down. We talked to them, and it was a good business. Mr. Bushfield ran a first class business. You'd never hear a bad word about him, except if he didn't think you should have that high, powerful car, he wouldn't sell it to you. Yeah.
That's funny.
Anyway, he was a great man, well respected. And,
Yep.
my brother and I talked to him. There was a few people after the business, so my brother and I talked to him, and unfortunately, he was getting pretty sick by then. He had cancer. And when we were done, he said, "Yep, I'd like you boys to have that business."
Cool.
Yeah. So he wouldn't sell Bushfield Motors. He just sold the assets. So we bought the assets.
Okay.
Yeah, because he didn't want his name. And
So,
I
so did you
understood.
have some of his inventory like left?
Well, we bought the whole business inventory and all.
Wow. So
yeah,
the building.
but we just bought the asset side.
Yeah.
So when you do that, in all honesty, you don't pay any goodwill.
Mm.
You know, goodwill comes if you buy the company with the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a good deal. Good bunch of people. I mean, and we had. Well, I had 40 years there, and my brother and our wives worked there. So we had a good time. It was,
40
it was fun.
years.
It
That's
was fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And then I got pretty old, and technology was saying, you know what, you're not staying up with it. And I agreed, and I didn't want to.
Actually, one of my favorite stories I remember, because I used to come into your office whenever I was home from university or whatever,
Yeah.
just pop in and say hi. And it was, I think, probably a year or two before you retired. And I remember we were chatting, and then the phone rang, and you picked up the phone, and you said something to the degree of like, you know, it was too high of a price or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then the guy said something, and then you got mad, and you just slammed the phone down.
Oh my!
And you turned to me and you said, you know, I know I'm getting too old for this business. What? Because like
That's not me.
10 years ago, you're like, I would have got my price and I would have negotiated with him until I had it, and I just could not care anymore. I thought it was the funniest thing ever.
Then it's time to quit.
Yep.
Time to quit.
And then
Time
about
to
a year or two later, you actually did.
Yeah.
Because we didn't think you would ever retire. But
Yeah.
how old were you when you retired?
Yeah, I was 77.
77.
You know, people talk about retiring, and I'm going, you know what? I could actually use something to do right now.
Exactly.
And I just ran into Jack Bolger there, and Jack used he had the Body Works, and she was saying he has a hard time. He
Yeah.
gets bored too.
Yeah. So what's
Yeah.
that like now for you? Do you find things, because you've been involved with the Rotary and things like that? And
Yeah, I do that. It's tough. I read a lot.
Yeah.
I read a lot. Did some crossword puzzles when they come in, and there's different things. But
Yeah.
some days you find the days long, especially in late winter like this.
Yeah.
You know, March is
sucks.
tough. It sucks.
Yep. No worries. Are you still doing like a half decent amount on the farm? Like, is Judy making you do things, or
Oh no, I don't shovel anymore.
no?
I
No
gave
more
up.
golden shovel you got at the
golden
wedding?
shovel. No, I
Yeah.
just shouldn't be shoveling at my age. I've been told that many times, so I don't do it.
Yep.
And Judy, she gives up the horses go away in the wintertime.
Right.
And so she gives up her manure shovel for a snow shovel. Out she goes. So
Yep.
open the door, wind her up, and let her out.
Nice.
That's-
You got your
that's
Kubota though, right? Your new little toy to
I got
do some
another
of the
toy.
other
Yep.
chores around.
Yep.
Nice.
And we forgot to talk about my first wife, Pat. Of
Yeah.
course, your grandmother.
Yep.
And, she
Well, I
was
was going to
great.
actually jump back even a little bit further, if
Yeah.
you don't mind. So
Yeah.
back in Cornwall, what was kind of the family dynamic like, both like you and your siblings directly and with your parents as well? What was kind of the overall household dynamic like?
I don't know. I think it was, one of the things that we did a lot of back then. Of course, there wasn't much TV when I first.
Right.
We played a lot of cards,
Yeah.
and every Sunday night, my brother, and myself, my sister was too young then.
Yep.
We played canasta.
Yeah.
I never did get to play bridge, but my mother
Yeah.
used to play bridge.
You
My
play
father
euchre
and I-
though, right?
Canasta was a good game, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we played cards, but you had a lot more family things. Like my mother's family would get together and
Yep. Have dinners
Christmas, New
and
Year's.
do.
Yeah. You wonder how in the heck they could have that many people in that little house.
So how many would that be?
Oh my goodness, we'd have. I'll bet you there'd be 50 people in that little house at Christmas time.
We drove by that
Christmas.
place one time. Dad took us. If it's
Yeah.
the same place.
It's not very big.
No, it was tiny.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't know if it was
Yeah.
that place or something. There was like what's the street?
It's Seymour Avenue.
Yeah, was it like 3 or something? Or there was like a 3.5 or something as well? Or
I don't know, but the canal was right across the way.
okay, yeah.
The
This is a long
Cornwall
time ago
Canal.
we went.
Yeah.
Okay, but I
Yeah.
remember it being a small home. So 50 people in that.
Oh my goodness.
Was there a downstairs?
And my uncle played. He was a pretty good senior hockey player. And
Oh yeah.
And in those days, Mike McMahon, a whole bunch of guys that they knew would come there at Christmas time because a lot of the leagues shut down back then. So everybody got to be with their family, which was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice. So anyway,
So overall with that though, you guys like as siblings and everything, you grew up fairly tight. Like your family all was tight.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And every now and again, my brother and I'd get into it,
Yep.
and when he had enough, he just took the big fist and gave it to me, and
He had big
I
hands
was
too,
done.
that man,
Yeah.
didn't he?
Yep. But I learned to fight.
Yeah.
And
Because
that
of
was
him.
part of Cornwall.
Yeah, that's right.
Tough.
Yeah.
But a good city, and of course played junior hockey there,
Yep.
and then last year in Brockville, and then played for Prescott Kempville Combines, and they went to the Allen Cup one year for Canada. which,
Whoa.
yeah,
Didn't realize
yeah.
that.
I wasn't on the team that
Yep.
year. No,
Yep.
I'd taken too many Saturday nights off to play hockey, and I wasn't getting paid. So when I got 2 kids, they said priorities are priorities.
Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't going to the NHL, so
Fair enough.
yeah.
So then you moved to Brockville, and then how did you from there end up meeting Grandma eventually?
Pat, you mean?
Yeah.
Pat. Well, I met Pat through a friend of mine who I worked with at DuPont,
Okay.
and he had actually taken her out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And anyway, next thing you know, we started going together, and we got married, and unfortunately, she passed away. Well, I'm trying to think what year.
2003.
That was 20 years ago.
We were
now,
just talking
so-
about this yesterday, actually.
07.
So was
Yep.
it? Oh,
07.
no, because we were in Australia.
Oh, that's right. Pardon me.
So 2004?
2003.
Yeah, it was 3 or 4.
I got
okay.
remarried to Judy on 2007.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
So how long were you and Grandma together then? Like you guys had been
41
married?
years we were married. 41 years.
41.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
a long time.
Long time.
I still have a lot of great memories of, even though we were such a young age, but especially like coming home from Australia in that first year before she was really sick.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of great memories of hanging out with her and playing games, and
Yep.
she had one of the best laughs ever. I'll see if I can find a clip to put in here because
Oh,
I
yeah,
loved her laugh.
She loved her grandchildren. I'll
Yeah,
tell you.
she sure, we were spoiled by you guys.
Oh well, what the heck?
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, your father and some of the others. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was young, you never did that. No, you
that's
send them
right.
home spoiled.
Yeah.
So-
Well, then when we have kids someday, I'm sure they're going to be the same way too.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, that's right.
What the heck?
Yeah, one of my
Yeah.
other favorite stories with Grandma was when we were home I think it was that first year from Australia. We had come back and we were making like spaghetti and garlic bread. And Grandma, we got chatting everybody in the kitchen, and she left the garlic bread in for like 20 minutes or something. And she opened it up. It was black as could be. And within like 5 minutes, the fire brigade was there. They had all the alarms are going off, and they came whipping around. The whole kitchen was filled with smoke. And
I think you did that twice because
oh, really?
I remember who the fireman was, and I said, "Yeah, the kids are home from Australia. They love to see you guys."
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And we set off fireworks the one time. That was the other thing, actually, because we shot them off and the fire brigade came as well.
Yeah,
because I think somebody didn't realize it was illegal to launch them in town.
Police came.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
Yeah.
They thought they heard gunshots or something.
Said, you're not supposed to let those off in the city. And I said, well, I didn't know that. These kids are home from Australia, and it's New Year's Eve, and I'm trying to entertain them.
That's awesome.
So anyway, I said to the policeman, just go around the block once. I got one left, and I'll let it go, and then we're done. Yeah, okay. So I thought that was pretty neat of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Good
That's
community
so cool.
relations, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
So
I have Dad or you or somebody, I remember telling a story when you and Grandma, I think, first started dating. This kind of goes back to your Cornwall learning to fight things, but I think there was a story of you guys were out at a restaurant or a bar or something, and some guy started hitting on Grandma, and you pinned him up against a car and basically told him to beat it. You don't know? You don't remember that?
No, I don't think
I don't know.
so.
Maybe it was all fiction or not, but
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know if you had any insight into that.
No.
Did you ever have any of those kind of stories? Because I've heard some of your Cornwall. You've had a couple little Cornwall tiffies, haven't you?
Well, we used to have a few gang fights in Cornwall. The North End to come down and
For
we'd
fun?
have a little tussle, you know.
For fun, or was there actually
but
like
they were all good friends after a while. They were like buddies anyway. So
That's hilarious.
you know. So
Too
anyway,
good.
things were different back then. They were a lot different. You know, it's like when I was a kid growing up in the back of our house. There was a great big field and trees, and we could go out there and play, you know?
Yep.
It wasn't a design play. It was have fun and
Use your imagination.
use your imagination. And,
A little different than today.
Yeah. So, but anyway, all times change, some for the good, some for the bad. But
Yeah.
overall, you know, I was just talking to somebody yesterday about it. We're so lucky to live in Canada.
Oh,
And
are we
we
ever?
live in one of the best cities in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And man alive, I'll tell you, I love Brockville.
Yep.
I love Brockville.
I agree.
Yep.
So going back to the starting of the business, why originally? So I've kind of explained to you, like, part of what this podcast is to figure out definitions of success, and that's kind of redefining what modern success looks like, and I guess some of the things that led you to success in the business. But first of all, why did you even start the business in terms of why did you want one? You said, I always wanted to work for myself, but why was that?
You know, I was just it was in my background and in my mind. I thought, I'd just love to run my own business. And I thought when I worked for IC or the bank and, you know, there were no bonuses, you didn't get rewarded. And I'm not being critical. That's the way they ran their business. Today, banks pay bonuses.
Yep.
Excuse me. And I think I was always after IAC to do that.
Yep.
And they became a bank eventually. Bank of Hong Kong bought them. But they didn't have people trained to move in there. And that was one of the things that I think was probably lacking at IAC. But, you know, who am I to criticize? But I'm just saying down the road, if I was staying with them, you'd want to have people that are trained that can do the job as a banker.
They need a reason
it's a lot
to
different than
work.
Yeah.
You need incentive to
Exactly.
put more into the company.
Yeah,
Skin
but I
in the
think
game.
overall, when you know, Mr. Bushfield had great staff. Everybody was good. They all pulled together. We treated them just like friends, you know. So we all got along.
Yep.
I think you've got to give people like that recognition.
Mm-hmm.
I tried when I came in the morning to walk through the shop, because one of the things that can happen in any business is them and us.
Yeah.
And that's not good. You know, you need to have everybody pulling in the same direction. So it's up to you to bring them together and get them to meld. And I worked hard at that because I believed in it, and not just for success, just for everybody's personal
well-being.
Well-being,
Yeah,
exactly. So anyway, and the customers, you know, it's funny because you get to be almost good friends with a lot of them because we worked on a one price system,
Yep.
no haggle. So we were fair. If you weren't fair, you'd lose them. So sometimes we probably stepped up a little more than we should have, but we did well.
Yep.
The service, and Jack Bushfield was well known for his service, and we carried on there. And eventually my brother ran the service, and Don was really good with the customers. And he brought a lot of business from DuPont because he was there for almost 20 years.
Right.
So, and then we got into the rental business as well. So we expanded a little bit, but we didn't get carried away, and we had to make some decent money.
Yep.
So, but we weren't afraid to share that with the people, and I think that's part of being in business. It's not just the money. It's seeing people grow, which I really love. I've helped some small business off the record, and mainly because I think small business is fantastic. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think it's making our country is growing on small business.
That's what I was just about to say. It's the backbone, really, of our economy.
And, when you look, we didn't get this big, but when you look in Brockville and area, and you think of the companies that are homegrown, we have some beauties, we got Burnbrae Farms.
Massive companies.
Oh, my goodness. Northern Cables now. These are all local people that grew these businesses. It's Russell. Anyway, the people that sell all the kitchen stuff.
Hendricks, yeah.
Hendricks and Dave Beatty.
Can-Arm.
Can-Arm. I mean,
Newterra.
A Newterra, right?
I just learned yesterday about a new company here in Brockville I didn't know existed that has something to do with being able to fill up different products and stuff at an alarming rate, like for gases and oils and things like that. And it's some kind of tech lever that I didn't even know existed right here in Brockville. It's actually the Kehoe, Sarah Kehoe. It's her brother, his company.
Oh yeah.
Or I think both brothers or something. But yeah, like there's all these companies I'm still discovering are coming out of Brockville that are like, they're global companies doing massive things. Yeah. And it's crazy.
Yeah. No. And Hansler Smith too. People forget.
Right. Yeah.
Hansler Smith is a pretty big company.
Yep.
We've got some great homegrown company out of here. Fantastic.
That's a big thing I've actually asked a lot of people who have been on the podcast about, kind of, especially, I think there's a lot of established businesses and whatnot, but there's a lot of opportunity for young entrepreneurs to come here that it's often overlooked because they think most of the bigger opportunities in the cities. But I don't think people understand the vast network and the global outreach that a lot of these companies have. So to be able to find a way to partner with or work for or set up a business that services them is a massive opportunity in this area. And then when you're in the summer and fall and you get to go out to the islands, I mean, there's nothing like it.
It's a pretty nice place to live.
Yeah.
I said that earlier, and I'll tell you, I believe that deep down.
Yep.
No, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Brockville's just a great, great, great city, and and great people too. Great people. Yep, can't say enough about it. So.
Yep. When you guys bought Bushfield, so when you said you took the assets and everything, you kept the staff on and everything as well. So how many people was that to start?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I think we had around 15 at the time.
Oh wow, so it's pretty big.
Yeah, and then when I retired, I think we had 20 or 20. No, we're under that, 19. I always tried to stay under 20 because when you got to 20 as a businessman, you had to do a lot of stuff that the government said you're now.
That's right.
Yeah, so you got to be careful here. Yeah. Because once you reach that 20, it costs you a lot of money. Now, maybe some safety things, but we worked on that anyway.
Yep.
So it's just that I didn't have to set up all these other. Then you got to have this, you got to have that. And you know what? So we tried to stay under the 20, and we did actually 19. Couple of part-time people we had, but they were looking for part-time too.
Yep.
Because I tried, if I hired somebody after 3 months, to keep them steady.
Yep.
We had good plans, and that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that everyone was taken care of on the health plans. And I guess if a small business person was watching this and I was running it again, and I've mentioned it to the owners now, get a pension set up for people. only roughly 20% of the working people in Canada have a pension now.
Wow.
It used to be in the 40 to 50 range. But that was one of my goals, and I'm, where you said, okay, if you put in $1,500, I'll match you.
Yep.
And you got to put a max on it because somebody's going to put 10
Yeah,
in. I don't want to put 10 in.
Right, yeah.
But I think, that's one of the things that's disappearing in this country is pensions. And you know what? Somebody's going to, when they retire, it's like now, people that don't have index pension and you get 8% inflation. Man, that's scary.
That is scary.
That's very scary. And, you can't rely on the governments for everything. I think sometimes our governments go a little overboard with giving right now. But anyway, who am I? It's tough to hold people in any small business today. And,
because there's a lot of opportunity, too, out there now.
And there's a shortage of everything, like banks.
Yep.
We've got a shortage of people in certain areas in the banks.
Yep.
Even tellers, it's hard to get people. So you got to make it worthwhile and make it attractive to them, basically. Yeah. Anyway.
Another question with as being like a business owner and having a partner as being your brother, I'd say overall you're probably a pretty self-aware person. So in that business sector of having a partner as a brother, so you have like that dynamic of family and then knowing your own kind of strengths and weaknesses between the two of you.
Yep.
What was that dynamic kind of like, and how did you guys utilize your strengths to kind of operate each side that you guys were?
That's a very good question, because one of the things that happens is most partnerships don't last.
Yep.
This person wants this wants this. They start working against each other instead of together. So I pretty well ran the business side, the sales, the accounting side, and my brother ran the service and parts. So, we just, at the end of the month, we'd look down and see how we were all doing. And we're not meeting people.
Yep.
We're workers. And but I watch this statement and I watch the expenses. And you know what? That's you got to watch your expenses when you're in small business, and sometimes people start to make money and they start spending it.
Yep.
You want to make sure you pad the books for the day when things get a little tough. So,
no kidding.
When you go and ask for help and you haven't got any reserves, they're going to say, "Well, what have you been doing with the money?"
Yep.
So, no, I think that was one of my goals, and we did reach that. I used to say, when people would ask me about small business, I'd say, "Well, when you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you say, I got to answer to that guy and my banker." And I said, the day came where we didn't have to rely on our banker, and we still did some business with him, don't get me wrong, but anyway, we ran the business, not them.
Yep.
So, and I must say, most of the Canadian banks that we dealt with, they've been fantastic. So, you got to be honest with your banker, and don't try and bull them. Give them the facts and say, "Hey, I got a little bit of a problem here, and here's what I'm doing."
It's the only way they can help you, really.
So exactly, yeah. So you can't expect them to go to bat for you, if they don't have all the facts. So,
what were some of Uncle Don's greatest strengths in the business? What were some of the things that he was really, really good at?
Don was very mechanical. He had that side, and I could do a little bit, but I wasn't as mechanically minded as he, and that's what he did at DuPont. He worked in design, and then he was a foreman, maintenance foreman, and he understood that stuff.
Yep.
And Don was very good with people too, very good with people, and I think most of the mechanics liked him, and I think everybody liked Don. He had his way, and So, it worked out, and I can't say we may have had odd little disagreement, but generally we patched them up pretty quick, and life went on. So,
on the customer side, this one actually, I just remembered another story. I think I might have told you this, but how do you deal with, obviously in business, you try to appease as many people as you can, but of course there's going to be people that aren't happy with the service, the price of the car, the deal, whatever.
Yep.
And so the joke always is when people ask me, "Oh, are you BD related, BD Dodge?" I always say, "What?" that depends. Do you like them or not? Because
Yeah.
I might be related, but I might not. Always joking. I love my family, obviously. But
Yeah.
I did have one time where I bought something on Marketplace, and I went to pick up the item, and this guy had this really nice Rubicon Jeep. And I mentioned to him, I was like, oh, it's a beautiful Wrangler you got there, and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, yeah, but I got this from these guys at BD Dodge, and this Doug guy, he blah, 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 and he went off. And I just sat there and nodded my head and And so he went off for probably about 10, 15 minutes. And then I took the sheets, put them on my car that I bought from him. And then he was like, oh, I didn't get your name, by the way. And I said, oh, I'm Mitchell Beatty. Nice to meet you. And he, white ghost face, just dropped. And he didn't say anything. I just rolled my window up and drove off. It was fantastic. But going back to the question, how'd you guys deal with that?
Well, you know what? No matter who's in business or what business they run in, as hard as you try, you're not going to please everybody. And that's what I used to say. Listen, we're never going to please.
Yep.
But if we can please 99%, then I call that success. And I think I never had. I had one complaint. Omvic is a company that, it's an organization that controls. It's called the Ontario Motor Vehicle Insurance, and they control, and that's our policeman, so to say. And just once did I have a complaint from Omvic, once. And it was something we'd already taken care of with the customer. And so anyway, that was kind of interesting, and I think often we get emails and a name, but no organization behind them. And that's what I was accused of by this person at Omvic one time. That, well, you didn't answer me. I said, well, how would I know who you are with? Tell me that. Do you think I know everybody that works at Omvic? And do you know everybody that works at my company? I said, no. I said, you know what? When you put your name down, in behind, put Omvic in brackets. Now we would answer. I said, I squelch that stuff. I don't dare open half the stuff that comes across my desk.
Yep.
So anyway, I said, well, let me speak to your communications man. So I got a hold of him. I said, listen, I just want to give you an opinion. I don't give advice because then you say if I'm wrong. I said, here's what happened.
I like that.
So, So I said, from now on, have all of your people put Omvic in brackets behind their name. I said, it makes sense. Not only that, you're going to contact the person like she contacted me the second time. She shouldn't have had to do that. Should have had once and it was over with,
Yep.
And anyway, those are just some of the things. Generally, we didn't have too many complaints. I must say we were and a few times we ate stuff because maybe we were wrong, maybe we weren't.
Yep.
The customer always thinks you're wrong, but that's not always the case neither. But
customers don't always know what they want. That's what what's his name, Steve Jobs says, right?
Yeah.
They don't know what they want until I tell them what they want. Maybe not to that degree, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So overall, I guess I think anybody who can be in a small business, and I think there's opportunities galore in the world today,
especially with the way the internet is, and
I don't think, and you see it with Generation Z, I think it is now they call it. Most people they don't want the extra time. Give me my job 8 till 5.
Yes.
Not being critical. That's you make a choice in life.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's the plus side of not being a business owner is like I'm sure you had days like that too, where you kind of go, man, I wish I could clock in at 9 and mentally check out at 5 and be done.
Oh yeah. We had lots of, you do work more hours. There's no question. And, you got to remember when you hire a staff, people don't realize. I know in our little business, somebody said to me something about, I said, well, do you know how much it costs me for you? With benefits and so on, and this is $5,000 to $6,000 a year. Did you ever think about that? Oh, why would that be? So then I told him about the Omvic fees,
EI, CPP, all the fun stuff.
Just on and on, Canada Pension, we pay that,
pension,
so I said, you're not a free ride here. You cost me money, but it's all taken into consideration, and
of course,
and we have to be thankful for the things that are available, like Canada Pension.
Yep.
And it was interesting because I was reading a book the other day, and somebody said to me, "Oh, the Canada Pension, it's got no money and broke." I said, well, I just have finished a book and some of it covered that. And there's 550 billion in the Canada Pension Fund.
What?
So when people say there's nothing there, it's almost as good as Canada's GDP in 1 year, Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of money. So, and I think it would be nice if they could up that, working with the provinces all the time, because it concerns me that, as I pointed out earlier, that there are hardly any pensions left in businesses,
Yep.
So, anyway.
So I got two more questions for you here. One of them is going back to, I guess, the core of the success metrics side of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's monetary success metrics that you're trying to do as a business, and personal and business of where you're trying to go.
Yep.
Outside of that, what other kind of metrics would you use in your own life or in the business side to define success in a company or for yourself?
Well, used to be, it was, if I remember the words, and I think it was our motto at our high school, were labor ipse voluptas. And if I remember that right, now that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Work conquers all. And you got to be able to put the effort in. You don't get anything for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And running a small business, it's tough. You gotta stay on top of things, and you can't be away playing golf every day or so on. It's going to hurt your bottom line one way or the other, and the bottom line is what it's all about. Profit is not a dirty word.
Yep.
Profit's a necessity if you're going to run a small business. So, that was always a byproduct of running the business, was making money to me. Take care of your staff and take care of the customers, and don't be afraid to give. Nothing wrong with giving. And sometimes I've had situations where we used to give a warranty on a used car, 50-50 for 60 days. Okay, so that meant most people would warrant a used car for 30 days.
Yep.
So I said, no, if a person has a problem, we want to fix it for them. We don't want them going down the street saying so-and-so.
Yep.
Most of the time, when I say most of the time, people came in and if they had a problem, they paid 100% of it. But if I told them 100%, well, I'd have them lined up with all the little things. So it worked well for the customer, worked well for us, and you know what? That was some of the best advertising in the world.
Yeah.
When you take care of people when they got a problem. And sometimes people were out of the warranty period.
Yep.
We took care of them.
There's a lot of businesses today that I think are really undervaluing what word of mouth still does for a business.
Yep.
Because everybody thinks, not everybody, a lot of people still think that social is like kind of the only direct way. And I would say there still is a very heavy emphasis on that. But especially in small business world, word of mouth, if you're trying to service local, it's probably the biggest one.
It's the biggest one in the world.
Yep.
And I can remember one girl, we sold her this car, and she had it a year, but she paid top buck, but it was a nice car. It was like a mint used car. Transmission went out of it. And she came in, poor soul. She was just crying and saying, I'm getting married and I really can't afford this. Is there anything you can do? Well, I said, let's go at it. So Don and I, we fixed the car. And we talked about it and said, she shouldn't have had these problems. Now, this doesn't happen all the time, but this was a long shot. So when she came to pick the car up, we gave her the keys and said, on your way. Well, how do I pay for this? We're going to take care of it for you. Well, you know what? That's some of the best advertising in the world.
Yep. She's going to tell every person. Yeah. I bought this car and
this kid was so happy she started to cry, and it almost made me cry. Anyway, you do little things like this, but sometimes you don't want to advertise it too heavy, but those are, you just go the extra mile, and you know what, it comes back to you one way or the other.
For sure.
No question.
So last sort of question, and you can add whatever opinions and stuff you want in at the end, not advice. And for young entrepreneurs who are kind of starting out in a world today where internet and all that kind of stuff is so heavily accessible, What kind of opinion would you give to people starting out new and want to try their own business in today's world?
Well, first of all, I think establishing a good banking relationship. And I'll tell you a little story about one time this customer of ours came in. He said, "Doug, can I talk to you for a minute?" And some of them knew I had a banking background. So he said, "Oh, come on in." So we sat down, we had a chat, and he said, "Hey, do you have trouble with your bank?" And I said, "No. Why?" Well, he said, "I got a lot of trouble with my bank. Jeepers," he said, "they won't finance my receivables." And he said, "They're all good from insurance companies."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I'm going to give you my background on what I do." I said, I go to the bank and we sit down and we get our lines of credit we need. And then I say to them, "Okay, here's your security. Here's the debenture. Take a floating charge on everything. Because I'm going to pay them back. And if things don't go well, they're going to get it anyway."
Yep.
So I said, they got security galore. They're happy. I'm happy. They go run the bank, and I run my business.
Mitigate as much risk as possible.
So I said to him, "You got to understand, as a banker, do you think your receivables," I said, "they're probably good from insurance companies, but
Yep.
you've got cash flow problem. I can tell you that right now. I know what it is." So anyway, he said, "Yeah." He said, "Geez, sometimes it's pretty rough." I said, "Well, what security do they have besides?" Well, he said, "That's all they got." I said, "They don't have your house?" "Oh, I'm not going to give them my house." I said, "Well, listen, if you go under, they're going to sue you anyway, so they're going to get your house."
Yep.
So I said, "Why don't you go and sit down with your banker and say, 'Listen, I'll give you my house as security, get your lines of credit, and go to sleep at night.'"
Yep.
I said, "Because half the time you're going to be tossing and turning and saying, 'Can I do this or can't I?'" Anyway, I ran into him about 4 months later, and he said, "Geez," he said, "thank you. You know what? I did that, what you told me." He said, "It's been marvelous ever since."
Yep.
So that takes one pressure out of a small business. And you know what? There's lots of pressures in a small business. But that was one thing that removed it for him. And he flourished after that. So anyway, that's just one thought. And I think you got to establish good credit lines, first of all. That's number one.
Yep.
And then you got to decide, you'll know by then, if you're setting up a small business, what your market is, how big it is. That's the stuff you got to know. Some people just jump in and they haven't done their homework.
Yeah.
You have to do your homework. It's like submitting. We use the Federal Business Development Bank a few times. And the last time, we just presented a nice little binder. And the phone call back and said, "Geez, we only got a couple of questions. I think you covered everything." I said, "Well, that's why we want it to be done quickly."
Yep.
So anyway, they said, "Well, we'll be back to you in a couple of weeks, but right now on the surface, we don't see any problems." But yeah, so they had all the information. There's nothing worse than saying, "Oh, I need this," and then you got to go back.
Yep.
So we didn't use any professionals, but there's lots of people around that'll help young businesses set that up. So, but that's the way I look at it anyway, and that's the theory I've always worked on. So,
cool.
Anyway,
I got to give a shout out to you too, because when I started my business, you were the first person. When I think we were chatting in your office again, and I said I have this idea of getting like the video company going, because I'm already working in it a little bit and I love it. Yeah. And you said, "Well, how much do you need?" And I wasn't looking for money at all, and I couldn't afford my first camera yet, so I was going to work until I could. And you gave me the first $2,000 that went into the business. And I think that ever since that $2,000 initial loan, I think it took only like 3 or 4 months that I paid you back.
Yep, I remember well.
Yeah, and
I would have given it to you, but
yeah, no. It's a good thing to have that, because if you don't have something to work towards with paying it off, especially like in that first year, then I think you just take that for granted.
Yep.
But what's neat with that business is all of this. Out of that $2,000, we have not taken any like loans, credit, anything like that. So that initial $2,000 investment is what
Yeah,
got
that's-
us kicked
that's-
up. You should have
I think-
asked for a percentage of the company.
I think you should make sure. I know you probably have a bank, but it's always good to borrow a little bit from your bank
Yeah.
and pay it
Leverage
back.
debt.
And pay it back.
Yep.
Yeah. You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Here,
Anyway.
we'll do just the. You can give the wrap up here. What's
Okay.
the final kind of little piece of advice
Yep.
that you would have for entrepreneurs in general?
Well, I already mentioned make sure you have a good
Bank.
bank.
Yep.
Make sure you've done your research into is it viable and what is the market. I think that's, some people, oh, I'll try that. No, get the facts and get the figures. Anyone who I worked with or worked for me said, well, I think, and I'd say, no.
You better know.
No, I don't want anything. I want facts.
Yep.
And so if anything they learned from me was get the facts. Don't come with I think, and don't say maybe. No, it's got to be here's the facts, here's what we think, because success doesn't fall off the shelf.
Yep.
You've got to make it happen, and if the industry isn't there, then why would you turn around? You could ruin your credit for life. You could, it's a keeping good credit is for a business person is number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little one here. This is kind of good. Anyway, we had bought the business, and they owned a house next door, the Bushfields, that we really needed to take down for expansion. However, we only had so much money. So I said to them, if you can give us a little while till we get some meat in our bones, we're trying to keep our working capital because, I'm a WC fan. You got to have working capital.
Yep.
So anyway, 1981 interest rates went up to 21%. And guess what? We were going to sell the house. Well, I couldn't afford not to buy this house. It was $25,000 back then. And I'm going, geez, I don't want to use all my capital. No. So I said to them, would you take back a mortgage? We'll give you a good down payment. No, we're settling the estate up. We want it done. Well, I phoned the bank. And I could I could still hear them laughing when the thing was, in other words, I wouldn't give you the money.
Yep.
Bang. So I'm going, what the heck am I going to do? If I got it, I'll pay for it. I had the cash. But so anyway, our parts guy, his wife worked for HFC Finance.
Yep.
And she was there one night, and I said, Donna, do you do mortgages? I'd like to buy that house next door. Oh, yeah. Well, I said, here's the deal. I said, it's $25,000. I'll put 10 down, and it'll pay it back over 5 years. Oh, she said, yep. I'll give you an app. So I filled it all out. They approved it, 18%. But did it really matter whether it was 10? It wasn't that much money. But the fact remains, they supplied the money.
Right.
And we bought the house through HFC. And then once the 5 years were over and paid for, I tore it down. Yeah. So, and I often laugh about that one because, when you go back, and nothing against our Canadian banks.
Yep.
But it was the finance companies and the acceptance companies that helped make this thing happen because people could start to buy things on time, and that got into mass production.
Yep.
After the war, So I can remember my mother buying her first fridge, probably about 1947. We used to have an ice box. Yeah, probably about 1947. And she paid, I think it was $8 or $9 a month. Back then, that was a lot of money. That was a lot of money.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's late 40s after the war. But that's how mass production started because now today banks do everything. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. All I can say is if it's your heart's in it and you can get everything together, if you're not sure, you got to get a hold of somebody who's an ex-banker or something to work with you and look your situation over. Yeah. Anyway, that's maybe it in a nutshell for me, Mitchell.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on and chatting. This is fun.
Great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of stuff should be written down, like a lot of the local companies here, the big guys.
Right.
In fact, Bob Anderson has written history on them, and I think that
That's right. Yeah.
you know Henderson's.
He did Northern Cables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burn Bray was done by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
He did Dave Beatty's family.
Yep.
All of them very interesting. You know, it's something we should capture
Mm-hmm.
for any small business like that became big business. I mean,
Yeah. That's one of the
Yeah.
things that I guess more with the video production company thing, we'd like to do some of those where it's more in documentary form that can
Yep.
also be put in audio form and also can be transcribed into written form.
Oh yeah, no, and as I say, we've got a lot of successful businesses here.
We sure do.
Yeah, and looking at Prescott, you know, like Kriska Transport. I mean,
Yep.
fabulous story, and
Yep.
Mark has done a great job there. He's a very good businessman as well. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's other people like we were talking earlier about
Will's
Willer's Transfer.
Will's Transfer.
Yeah, even though
Yeah.
their head office isn't here, they're probably their biggest places here. I think. Anyway, I don't
Yeah.
know that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so you know, those are great stories. I love business.
Yeah, me too.
Oh yeah, I think it's utopia. That's what I think. So
Well, maybe we'll have to get a part 2 from you on the podcast at some point as well. It'd
Yeah.
be fun.
sounds good.
Cool. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Good day. Bye bye.